Looking though at that Cecilia Adams bike, she's so well documented on that bike, riding that bike, racing that bike. That's what I hope to do in the 21st century is I hope to be like a Cecilia Adams.
As long as they've been around, motorcycles have been a vehicle for self-expression. It's exactly why we wrench on bikes, chop them up, and make them our own. But there's more to it than that. It's the journeys and experiences that only motorcycles can provide. We're not just riding, we're riding our life stories, one unforgettable ride at a time. It's a life worth living and stories worth sharing. This week, super stoked to head out to South Dakota. We're gonna go visit Brittney Olsen, who is a vintage motorcycle racer, and a lot of people don't know that she also builds bikes. She builds some crazy, beautiful stuff. We are gonna get to see where she lives, what she does, and how she fabricates and builds not only her race bikes, but some customs as well. So really excited to see how they do it in South Dakota.
Hey, how's it going, Roland? Welcome to South Dakota. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. It's been a minute.
Yeah, thanks for coming up in the Arctic cold weather we have going on right now. But come on in, take a look at what we're working on.
Absolutely.
So welcome to my house. Yeah, come take a look at what we're working on. And it's
this is a museum.
It's a little bit of our life and collection and stuff that I've raised, stuff that Matt and I have built together. And this right here.
I love this bike.
Yes, this right here.
I love this bike.
Is the bike that I built as an invited builder for Born Free. It's 80 cubic inches, no brakes, no clutch, no transmission. This is what you would have really seen in 1928, 1929, right before the end of board track racing. I bet I could do 110, 120 on this on a mile track. But when it comes to the build that I'm building, but we take it old school, we take it back to the Sport Scout, but more of like a street Sport Scout, not necessarily like racing Sport Scout.
I'm really excited to see what you have cooking.
The Scout is one of the most iconic bikes. When it comes to motorcycles throughout history, Indian Scout throughout time has just proven to be a bike you can race, a bike you can ride, a bike you can thrash. There's so many different variations of the Scout too. You know, you have the 101 Scout and you have Burt Monroe. You have the 648s and you have the Wrecking Crew. You know, you have Ed Kretz and Bobby Hill, Bill Tuman and Ernie Beckman, and you have these guys that are just throughout history of motorcycling just showing what the Scout can do. But then here's something that doesn't really get hit on, right? The historical foundation for my bike build is the early 40s, early 50s, women riders that would ride Sport Scouts back in the day. And every time you see these iconic pictures of women racing and riding and thrashing on their Indians, they all have smiles. So you see Paddy Wagon racing it, you see Tracy Gear Jammers, and I have this one image and it is just ingrained in my brain. It is burned in my brain. That Cecilia Adams bike. I mean, that was a period correct custom. We're talking about like when customs were just not something you would see. The thing with Cecilia, she's so well documented on that bike, riding that bike, racing that bike. That's what I hope to do in the 21st century is I hope to be like a Cecilia Adams. So this is where we do all of the race bike projects, all of the building of old bikes.
All right.
So, I got a little strip down here.
Yeah. So what in particular do you want to bring from history into this modern bike?
Yeah, the girder front end, the classic Sport Scout girder front end. Single spring in the middle, Flanders bars. There's so much more to this bike than what I'm used to. I'm used to building bikes that don't even have brakes. So,
Yeah.
you know, race bikes.
By brakes you mean, by no brakes you mean zero brakes. No rear
Brakeless.
brake, no front brake,
Nope.
brakeless.
With something like this though, it's so modern, it's new, but it's so in need, I feel like, of just a classic touch. I think we should weld a section onto here, because you see, this is like the Sports Scout, but it's missing 4 or 5 inches, right?
Oh, and you want to use the
And-
stock fender / subframe.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
have it polished.
Oh, that'd
And
be
so
sick.
beautiful. You know, like this is painted, obviously, but
Yeah.
this is aluminum. And what I love about aluminum is you can polish it and get it so pretty and so mirror finished.
What are you going to do with the sides here?
So we're gonna make little panels that you can mount here. You know, back in the day, you would be like, you know, Indian motorcycle, or
Yeah.
you would write your name,
Yeah,
right?
that's cool.
And I want to do the same thing with this, because I'm all about like changing things, making it your own.
Yeah.
You know, the options are endless. There's so many new ways you can customize this. Whereas
Yeah.
I feel like with the older one, there was a lot of limitations. And so
There was. This has a steel chassis,
it's amazing.
like in it, and it's much more of a classically styled aesthetic. It's also a much more customizable aesthetic.
Yeah, speaking of customizing and classic design, I want to show you the gas tanks. This is a Chief tank,
That's a Chief tank.
and that has a
Yeah.
classic
Yeah.
teardrop style.
Yeah.
Now, I know you know what I'm doing with this.
We built the Chief with this same tank halves, and I think that this tank half is beautiful, especially when you take the middle out of it and you can narrow it. Like, man, it starts to get pretty sexy.
That's the concept, that's the idea.
Yeah,
and to
that's a
really
win.
bring that Sports Scout tank back to the Scout, you know, and show people like, hey, this is something a woman in her basement can do.
Yeah.
Anybody can do this. It's not challenging, it's not hard, but
I don't know if anybody can do this.
Pretty
Come on,
lucky because
Brittney.
I have Roland Sands in my basement that I can pick his brain for some advice, because I have never done this before. I've never worked on a new motorcycle. And for me to really make a modern bike look classic, it needs to have that classic shape. And so this is how we're doing it.
It's quite a bit of work to get that classic look transferred onto this chassis with the width of the airbox and everything.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a challenge, but yeah, you guys got the tools and the know-how to make it right.
Yes. This project in particular is so amazing for me personally, because a lot of people only know me from racing and being this competitor and cheerful, bubbly, enthusiastic person who loves old motorcycles, but they don't understand, or they don't see that I'm a fabricator. I grew up in the fabrication shop. The summer after 4th grade is when my dad sat me down, taught me how to MIG weld. As a tiny kid, I remember my dad telling me, Brittney, please do not play with the metal shavings from the lathes and mills. You're gonna get slivers. And then going home and like having blisters all over my hands, because it's like playing with glitter. It's so fun. So I grew up in that atmosphere. And then I met Shirley Muldowney at a drag strip with my dad. He was crew chiefing for a drag racing team. We were in Scribner, Nebraska. My dad showed me the movie Heart Like a Wheel. And at 3 years old, like, movies are fake. They're not real. They're, you know, produced in Hollywood. So I thought I was meeting a movie star, which I was so excited because I wanted to be Miss America. I wanted to be like, you know, Cindy Crawford, right? And when I met her, I asked when she was going to be in Hollywood making her next movie. And she said, oh, that wasn't me in the movie. Like, I'm the race car driver that the movie's about. And then it just clicked. It was like, oh my gosh, you mean I can be a race car driver? And she sat me in her car and told me I could be whatever I wanted to be when I grew up. So I took that mentality and put it into racing, put it into building, put it into whatever I wanted to be. I just had, you know, Shirley Muldowney on my shoulders saying, you can be whatever you want to be. It's my favorite thing, really, is just to kind of be that incognito, enthusiastic smile, you know? But just down at heart, you know, you're just this like badass, like aggressive racer who can outride most men and then also work in the shop all day long.